Hi guys, my name is James, and today I want to talk about my experience switching from an Android to an iPhone. So essentially, a lot of reviewers take a look at these phones, they read off a spec sheet, and then they show you some B-roll, show you some of the features and new things in the phone, and then that's pretty much it, they're done. But what they don't really talk about is the experience with actually getting the phone or using it in a day-to-day scenario, and that's one thing that I kind of want to change today. I want to kind of discuss the experience with actually getting the phone, and not necessarily about the phone itself, just because there's so many other videos talking about, you know, all the performance and the benchmarks and everything. That's not what I want to focus on today. Like I said, I want to focus on the experience of having it, getting it, how it compares to other devices, and overall, should you be, you know, switching to another phone. So the first thing that I want to touch on is something that kind of stuck out to me right as I started to look at this phone, and that is the Apple tax. Essentially, Apple has such a chokehold on accessory makers and third-party companies that everything involved with Apple is going to be more expensive. And that sounds bad because you're like, oh, well, I'm gonna be paying more money. But once you actually start to get invested in this system, it kind of gives you an interesting mentality on different accessories that you're going to be getting. So imagine it like this. You have a $5 pair of headphones and a $200 pair of headphones they sound exactly the same when you put them on, they sound great, but you're gonna look at the $5 pair of headphones and go, okay, those are cheap, there must be something missing, there's gotta be some compromises going on there. Now, if you look at the $200 pair of headphones, you're going to be like, that's an uncompromised pair of headphones. There's nothing being, no corners cut or anything like that. That's going to be the one I'm going to get over the cheap ones. So that's kind of a mentality that is instilled upon you when you start to get into this ecosystem, because everything is just a little bit more expensive. But once you start to actually get into these accessories, it just feels more premium because you feel like the price is more justified. So when you buy like a $60 Sapphire HDX screen protector from Zag, it just feels a little bit more justified, and it just makes you feel like you have a much more premium device. So the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of the design and form of the phone. But one thing I've actually found while using this is it's just a lot more manageable. So it's, the 4.7-inch screen, and it just kind of fits well in every pocket, hand, anywhere you're really going to be using the phone. So my previous phone, again, the Note 4, was, it had that almost 5.7-inch screen. It was absolutely massive, and I always had to use two hands. It was always, you could just see it in my pocket. It was bulky. It was just this brick in my pocket. And after kind of using that, it was kind of refreshing to have this smaller device. So even though screen real estate is lost, it just feels overall a lot more fluid and easier to navigate around, because you're not sitting there trying to walk your hand up the phone to reach the notification shade, or trying to shimmy down to hit the home button or something like that. It's like the perfect size just for day-to-day use and one-handed use, which is perfect because I'm always on the go and I don't have time to use both hands sometimes. So the next point I want to talk about is battery life on this. Everyone always says that the battery in the iPhone is small, that it's nowhere near the size of a Samsung or something like that, but when you actually use it in a regular scenario, you'll find that it's actually almost perfectly sized for the average, user's day. So for me, I'm a power user. I'm always on LTE, downloading like tweets, Instagram, going through YouTube and everything. And still, I'm able to end the day with about 20% battery. So the battery is basically perfectly sized, and that way they don't add any extra bulk to the phone or make it, thicker. I know they're all about thinness. So it is pretty much perfectly optimized for the average user. Now, my other phone that I had was the Note 4, and while the battery is absolutely massive in it, the Android operating system had a habit of just chugging battery. It wasn't optimized. When it's in my pocket, I wasn't doing anything, but it would just get abnormally hot to the point where sometimes I couldn't even touch it, and it would die at 37% every day, and you had to plug it in to get it to start up again. And it just overall was not a good experience on the average day usage, because it usually was dead before I got home if it hadn't already just shut off for no reason, and it just wasn't the best experience. So that kind of brings me to my last point, which is optimization, and that is one thing that Apple does a fantastic job with. You know, you can tell that Apple has worked both in the software department and the hardware department, because not only do they have their entire operating system created by them, the hardware is also almost all created by them as well. And while they might not manufacture it, they have a really good handle on the actual design of it. You know, they design their own A series processors for them, like the A10 or the A9 for everything. You know, they have a good handle on the cameras and everything that they're getting manufactured for these phones. And they just make sure that everything works seamlessly. And since it doesn't have to work on really more than, you know, maybe 10 other iPhones, everything is like perfectly optimized, because they can actually have the device in the shop while they're working on it and see how their changes are affecting it. While in Android's sense, they can just kind of assume what's going to happen, but since phones haven't been created before Android is developed, in a sense, they don't really know how it's going to perform on hardware of the next phones that are going to be coming out. So the iPhone has just been extremely streamlined and smooth to use. You know, the fingerprint scanner is instantaneous. The cameras are just so smooth with the frame rate and everything. The animations are absolutely just fluid. And, you know, the Force Touch implementation is actually worthwhile this time. Last year, it wasn't that great with the 6S and the 6S Plus, where some of Apple's standard apps had it in it, like Force Touch. But now all the third-party apps really have some kind of support for it. And it actually makes sense to use it now. When you're answering notifications, you can just press and hold on it a little bit harder, and you can get a keyboard and answer it right there. Or you can quickly launch into an application to a specific part of it instead of going through a bunch of sub-menus. And then, you know, there's a bunch of different features with, you know, even the home button is Force Touch now. It's implemented everywhere, and it's really intelligently included into these applications just to make your life easier. So that's one thing that I definitely admire about iOS, is just how simple and straightforward it is. You know, there's no carrier bloatware, there's no manufacturer implementation software that needs to be put on before they send it out. Everything is just available. Now, with something like Android, whenever a manufacturer gets Android, again, like I had mentioned with creating drivers and extra software, it takes them months to finish making everything work. And then it takes an extra month for carriers to add their, you know, bloatware to it. And then finally, after this long chain of different stages it has to go through, it finally reaches your phone, and then all of a sudden another Android version comes out, and then the waiting process starts again. So that's like one main thing that I like about having an Apple phone, is just how everything is controlled by them. And as bad as that sounds, there's kind of a reason for that. It just makes the experience seem just professional and smooth, and you don't have to worry about anything. So that's been my experience with the iPhone. I would definitely recommend this phone. If you guys want to see reviews on all these phones that I've got here, except for the OnePlus One, I gotta get a new screen for it. Just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to do, you know, a review on it. But I just wanted to do something a little bit different, going over some of these features. And yeah, let me know if you guys liked it. Drop a like below, and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.